All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the West Southwest Milwaukee School Board to order. Ms. Carr, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Of course. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Sarah, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Steele?
Here.
Mr. Sikich is excused. Mr. Keller?
Here.
Ms. Carr?
Here.
Mr. Becker? Mr. Burns?
Present.
Ms. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Kaiser?
Here.
President Lee?
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
There are no modifications.
All right, we're going to move right into our student showcase. Board members, we can move up to the front row here from Nathan Hale.
So thank you for having us tonight. Our one shot at the showcase here. So we have a student presentation today. I'll just talk a little bit about our theory of action, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Hart. Mr. Hart is our CTE teacher in the autos area. And the two individuals here are Jackson and Alex. They are the winners of the technician of tomorrow competition. And I'll talk to you about the competition, how they applied the stuff from there, what they learned, and talk a little bit about next steps with their possible careers and things like that based on what they achieved. So first of all, our theory of action that everybody's starting with these. I highlighted a bunch of work because I knew it would be hard to see. High quality, grade level explicit instruction aligned, of course, in ECT standards. This isn't necessarily ACT standards, but definitely is curriculum related. They'll talk a little bit about how some of the assessments they take to qualify or related to that same type of situation where these have to be assessment capable and ready to take those kinds of things no matter what career you're in. So they'll talk a little bit about that. Impactful instructional strategies is another focus at Nathan Hale High School throughout the year. Effective PLCs, we're talking to district, how do we work better as teams across the board in your content teams, and cycles of data analysis. We're in the process of our ACT state testing this Wednesday. That's what we're on. And our ultimate goal is that all basically 50% of our students, 75% of our subgroups move over one proficiency level as measured on the ACT test. And I'm just going to talk about a couple other things. What we've done around the ACT test in preparation for that this year. We've had two practice pieces, one in October, one in January. That's where our data analysis comes in, like how are we improving over time? Ultimately, the rubber hits the road Wednesday, right? And then we get the results a little bit later in May. Students have worked through On to College, which is an online platform in all their core academic classes, and these guys as well. And those are the core areas, but in the elective areas, they supported reading and math, which is this piece here today. So they're all reading across the curriculum, all doing math across the curriculum as well. The one focus area that we've honed in on the last several months is active engagement. So I underline a few key words. What is active engagement? That's not a key engagement, but active engagement in the classroom, participating meaningfully, mentally and physically involved in the lesson, and interactive, student-centered, and fosters curiosity for learning. That is exactly what's happening here with that technical program and the competition. I did throw up a little diagram. We talk here as a staff, there's passive engagement and active engagement in the classroom. Talk about when you walk into a classroom, you go, oh, everybody's on task and just quietly doing like a worksheet. That would be passive engagement. Active engagement is that. How are you working with that worksheet? Are you getting kids to talk, to work together, to problem solve, to share out? That's what these guys do in their competition, in their coursework. So this goes hand in hand with that. So I'm going to turn it over. That's enough about the school improvement plan. Turn it over for a little bit from Mr. Hart here to kick things off.
As far as what I have the kids do, we've got included the power mechanics, which is very small. The coursework that we go through, you'll find a lot of this on the BBC. All the way down through just taking a single cylinder engine all the way down to nothing. Putting it all back together and then publishing the process. With discussion throughout. Who's following the sheet? Being able to, as you can see on some of the ICANN statements, look for some of the innovative solutions if they run into a situation where it's missing or somebody's different help from doing before, and I got different goals and what the procedure costs for. So there's a lot of that involved in just getting started. And then going to the intro to auto mechanics, we'll just kind of race down there and get some things up there. And then we work up in the- So, the intro to auto maintenance is what I kind of started with this. When investing in how to purchase a car, even in the car mechanics, starting that auto, starting that interest early and figuring that they're gonna, if they're gonna operate that car, I want to be out on the road as safely as possible, and safety checks and start doing the same things that these guys have. So that when, as a sophomore and above, they can start taking more autos. We go through the ASE areas there, which you can see on the slide, where they start getting into those employability skills, and we actually start testing. Where we take the auto and light truck certification test, maintenance light repair, which is the test that I give for you guys to actually start the Adam competition. They send me a thing and say, we want you to give this test in my scores and set them up, and then those are with all schools from Grafton and above to West Bend all the way to Ottawa down to Lake Geneva, Elkhorn area. And then once they qualify, we get to Alex and who's our junior, Alex Miles, and then Jackson Mosley. They had the two highest scores. And I'll let them actually talk about some of their goals here. You can see off the screen what they plan on doing. And then they'll talk more about the competition and specifics that we've done through about 6 weeks from the time they tested to the time they actually get to do it. Alex, you want to go first?
Yeah, you can share here before I move on to what your goal here is ultimately what?
Well, my end goal would be to work on aircrafts and jet engines, but currently I just got a job at Gordon Boucher Lincoln from this competition. So kind of working in that path, see where that takes me. I'm playing on a dual enroll in autos and education at either MAT or WCTC. Actually, just before I got here a couple hours ago, I had an interview at a dealership from the competition. They reached out to me through phone call. Awesome. So to qualify for this competition, we took that light maintenance and repair test like Mr. Hart was talking about. It's a 55-question test, similar to the ACT. It's got multiple choice questions, everything on a car you can think of, all with different like technician A, technician B style questions going through the diagnosis of a vehicle. We got the two highest scores and top 8 teams that it led to getting to the competition. To prepare for it, we were twice a week for like 10-ish weeks working with Heiser and Cunis. Right there in that picture, we were working on electrical testing with Justin at Cunis. The differential is one of the things we had to learn. So we learned a lot of different math problems on how to actually diagnose electrical problems or different very precise measurements.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the superintendent, if you bring anything along, that thing was like 100 pounds, that ball under your cover. It controls the front to the back and the left to the right, yeah, so, yeah. That's what it is, so yeah, if you look up, it's the round thing sitting under there and they cut it in half, and that's what they work on.
Yeah, it's practicing measuring that. It's a big thing when you get into dealerships. There's failed a lot of times, so It's a competition, we run a lot of, like skill stations, and then we also, when we first got there, we took an additional written test, as part of our course, so for sake of the test we originally did. And then we went through skill stations, and they had, I think, 7 to 9, I don't remember the exact number. But, so we went through a lot, there was, permatex, which is like gaskets and red lockers. The engine mechanics, it's like putting the head on an engine, get the rear diff, which is like that thing we were just talking about, you set up clearances with that to make sure it's in specs. And then a whole bunch of other ones, I should kind of read backwards on the list. So for the hands-on competition, we got a vehicle with a customer complaint, with a 10 engine light on, and they wanted to get it ready for a film trip. We went through with a scan tool and verified the customer complaints, and then went through and found other issues, and actually found an extra issue that wasn't supposed to be part of the competition. So we just went through that, troubleshooting, found all the issues that we could, and then we also cleaned the vehicle again, so that was part of the presentation.
We want to talk about. As far as the actual competition itself, those top 3 pictures are all us working on different stations. Both the first 2 measurements, we were measuring all different kinds of pieces they laid out on a table. We had to use all these different precise measuring tools to figure out if the things were in spec. Engine mechanical was the same way. We were reading off a packet that was provided by the dealership of the manufacturer specifications, and we had to figure out if everything was good on the parts.
Yeah, so with the skill station, you kind of went around, you got a packet with a couple different options, and it was up to you to figure out which option was the correct vehicle and specs for the vehicle, and it had a specification. So like with the, not up here, but the rear backlash, there's a plate in it that you can have for your tolerances, and if that's not up to spec, you had to notify them that, and they do your grade, you got to write it up.
As far as the car goes in this competition, we were given the car with the customer complaint, a work order similar to if you were to take your car to a dealership, the technicians handed that work order. So we were given one of those, and we had to work off of that to figure out the bugs wrong with it.
Some of the awards and recognition we got is the scholarship, that's one of some of them. That's a scholarship on the top left there, and we also got, we both got one of those toolboxes, which is takes one of those toolboxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really expensive toolboxes, maybe you would say. We also got $500 at Harbor Freight, which got most of the tools in there, other than a couple that I just kind of threw in there. And then $300 at Better Rated or PDI Tools, which is, I don't think either of us use it.
You gotta break it up a little bit. What toolbox, how much was it to the toolbox? It's like everything in the end probably added up to $8 grand, including the scholarship.
Wow.
As far as learning and opportunities, we went through all those different learning targets that we go through in class every day, but applied them into the real world. Like actually what you do in a job or in situations like that. Every regional manager in the area has given us a business card or tried to reach out to us for a job because we won the competition, and it's held by every dealer in the area. And all of them trying to play for your schooling and get you further into the dealerships.
And prior to this competition, I know Alex has worked a lot on cars before this, but prior to this, I pretty much done nothing on cars. So going from pretty much from nothing to schooling in Mr. Hart's class, maybe did that high school on the technical competition, brought me a long way. I've had interview earlier today, a couple other places reach out for like job opportunities. And then just from like a school standpoint, like the AC that's coming up, a lot of the stuff that you might not think you use for like auto mechanics, we do use like we apply mathematics to measuring conversion, stuff like that. English and reading in job interviews and science and like how the cooling systems work and everything like that.
Questions from
This car?
I'm really curious, like, do you remember at what age you thought you might want to go into this field? Were you as a child, like, do you remember it?
Probably really little. I've been doing it for a long time now. My dad was a master technician for like 15 years, so he's pretty much, we grew up in a garage working on the cars, so.
Okay. So maybe different experience because you are saying that you just decided, oh, I'll take auto mechanics and see where it leads.
Yeah, so I took a lot of the shop classes, just as like, you know, I like making stuff out of, like with my hands, like Legos a lot, Play-Doh, whatever. So I thought, you know, shop classes, I can get out of the normal classroom and just go get something, so that let me easier. And, prior to this, I think I did one oil change, with the supervision on my friends.
Jackson, you said that you're doing automotive and education. You hoping to be a CTE teacher maybe someday, or?
It's a possibility. So I actually am a student intern at one of the elementary schools right now.
Oh.
I do 4th and 2nd grade. So I'm kind of just looking around at all the educational careers that kind of interested me once I started working at the county school program.
Yeah.
So I've kind of gone into there. So I'm looking, I'm actually kind of thinking more like an administrative role if I go there. So
Of the skills test that you guys did in competition, what did you find was the most challenging for each of you?
probably the measurements down to measuring resistance was my struggling. So there's a way you can convert resistance to voltage in the circuit or like watts and stuff like that, all the different conversions when you're missing a variable. That's probably the hardest thing in my opinion. Yeah. Probably agree with that. Also, the actual competition, just because of its time, when we have to put the head back on the engine, I don't think anything about that, just because I don't think there's enough time to do it. So that was difficult, just like trying to work under pressure, building get everything to expect.
What was the time frame for that?
Every station had 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, wow, okay.
We got the furthest in that engine mechanical station. We almost had it done.
Just one, I want to say that you stole my question, because I was gonna ask how this competition has impacted your other studies, your other school curriculum. But, thank you for answering that already, but I actually just wanted to say is that also looks like all of the stuff that you're doing, also for the presentation skills, like I'm speaking of everyone, your confidence is fantastic, and just that well-rounded approach that you have. I hope that this continues to be very fun. Really excited to see it.
So, I think the biggest thing is I think it's a big eye opener for a lot of people. Do students that they know about like the stuff that you guys are doing, they know this is something that they can do, because for someone who didn't come in like I think I want to work on cars, compared to someone that did it for a very long time, you know, having that opportunity, ability, understanding all the skills you learn to get ready for a test like the ACT can be effective in automotive or other CTE courses. Are we doing a good enough job of that? Is there things you could see as students that you've learned about these things earlier that we should be positive about, and that ideas like that we could consider as a board?
Maybe adding the opportunity to even like the younger kids, like even 8th graders, maybe giving the opportunity to like small engines or even intro to small engines. Cause like our woods classes, you can start woods in like 7th grade and you have that experience further in, but you come into high school and you can take car mechanics, but some kids don't take it right away and they don't always have that background knowledge coming into those classes. I think a big part of it too is, especially with high school and auto mechanics like this, a big part of it is once I got my car, I don't even understand how it works. I don't know if that's like common across a lot of high schoolers, but it's just something that I figured I'd be using very often. I wanted to have some idea of how it worked. And then going through that to this now, and I understand pretty much a good portion of all the ins and outs of it. I'm just saying that's like a really good figure out how they work.
2001 trailer, they're on the parking lot.
All right, all right, yeah. Different things. Bringing your power to him. All right, awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
And they are sporting their jacket, their employees' jackets, they've got.
Yeah. Trying to get free auto repairs.
I seriously was like, oh, good parts.
My car.
My high school. And you can. Oh, really? That's impressive. I'm so glad. Some new brakes. I don't think buying any vehicles is opportunity. He can't do everything. Brandon.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. That was a great presentation from Nathan Ham. Thank you again to students and staff and families for being here to share forward about this really great competition and some things happening in our CT program. So we're round of applause for everyone who participated today. All right, with that, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
So good evening. I also want to echo congratulations to the young men on their presentation as well as their accomplishments at the Auto Fest a few weeks ago. But I think what they talked about, though, is the need to expand the opportunities for our students. Without saying it, I think in so many ways, that's what I took from it. So it's definitely a good night, good day to hear that kind of presentation and the direction that we're going through as far as our strategic plan is concerned. Legislative session continues. Bills formally introduced. A new round of education bills has been introduced, introducing additional restrictions and requirements for school boards to pass referenda. These include eliminating recurring referenda, requiring property tax information on the ballot, and eliminating funds raised by referenda of more than 50 million from a school district shared cost. Other bills include designating school athletics by sex at birth, allowing more backup lights on buses, requiring specific policies on student names and pronouns, and extending open enrollment timelines for military members. Marquette Law School polling includes education issues. Marquette's Law School conducted a poll of K-12 education, focusing on public views on Act 10, satisfaction with public schools, private vouchers, property taxes, DEI programs, and special education funding. These results showed mixed sentiments. 58% satisfied with public schools and 41% dissatisfied with public schools. 58% of the respondents supported holding down property taxes is more important, and 41% supported increasing taxes for public school funding. 76% supported a major increase in special education funding, with the majority of all partisan groups supporting this idea. This brings me to my next thing, the WASB Day at the Capitol. So on last Wednesday, along with myself, Mr. Lee, Mrs. Kaiser, Mrs. Steele, Mrs. Carr, and Mr. Becker, we all attended the WASB Day at the Capitol. This was an opportunity for us to lobby the legislature on specific issues that are affecting our school district as well as students of the state of Wisconsin. We lobbied specifically for increased funding for special education and also for better and equitable funding for all school districts, so we will not have to go to referenda so much. So this was definitely an opportunity where we engaged with not only state senators, state reps, also staff members from the different offices. Just overall a great experience for myself as well as for the board members, and I'm sure that at some point tonight they'll talk about their experience in lobbying. And district recognitions. WAC basketball, an incredible season comes to an end. The WAC boys basketball team gave it their all, battling to the sectional final with heart, determination, and teamwork. We're so proud of their effort and the way they represented our school as well as our district. So I want to thank you, players, coaches, and fans, for an unforgettable journey. This is very, very much bittersweet. I see Mr. Jesse in the audience. We were mainstays at all of the games and just trying to cheer these kids on. And so I kind of felt like I was the fifth coach at times because of my screaming. But it's just, coming into the district, you really have, I've become a fan of what these kids are producing on and off the court. So I'm just so proud of their achievements. So looking forward to making a drive this weekend to Madison. So maybe next year, because their entire core is coming back. All 5 starters will be back next year. So just a great job by all the coaches, the players, as well as the Central High School community. So thanking the community as well for standing behind our young men. Our coach of the year, congrats to Eric Viss, our wrestling coach of the year for the Woodland West Conference. Is coach here? I know I saw him in the back. So I want to bring coach on up. Katie, did I steal your thunder? I think you wanted to make a presentation. I'm sorry, I didn't. Okay, go ahead. You want to say some more? Sure.
So this year he sent 4 wrestlers, state, one of them was ranked in the top 8. He also took down walking and goalie, and they among a bunch of other cool things he did this year by, increasing the participation of the kind of girls. I think one of the coolest things that you guys had was the goalie, to the top of the school. And correct me if I'm wrong, it came down to the final match, and he had pulled up an athlete who was doing the whole season until that week. He was the very first varsity match, and then one of his matches.
And the whole, he's got a video of it, the whole, like, everyone just erupted. It was so cool. So I think that just really speaks a lot to the program that VIS has created. And I think it's not surprising to me at all that he was voted coach of the year, but I think it's such an honor. So excited for him and the whole program.
Thank you guys for bringing me up here and honoring me for this. I really just want to make sure that like all of our, this is like to me a program award or a program recognition. Like we have 51 people, 52 people in our program, 40 wrestlers, 8 coaches, and 4 managers that got to do their job every time that we compete and practice and work for us to do things like beat Pewaukee and send wrestlers to state and all those things. So it's really not just about myself, it's about the 52 other people and the amazing like supporters that we have, the family. You should see the crowds that come to our wrestling meets, the families that are out there. They have these Bulldog Hawaiian shirts and there's like 30 or 40 of them at the state tournament. They all have in their section. Yeah. And they get fired up and they're loud and they love cheering on Bulldog wrestling. And I think kind of like you're talking about basketball, we're going to be coming back even better next year. We only have 4 seniors in the program. 2 of them were in our starting lineup and 3 of our 4 state qualifiers are returning next year. So I think we're going to be pretty strong again next year. So thank you guys.
Outstanding. I want to again say congratulations to you. I will make a pledge, and not only to you, but also to Coach at Hale. I will be at more matches next year because I'm going to do my homework and learn how the scoring works and all.
Yeah. And if you haven't,
what's going on,
if you haven't came out and seen a wrestling match, I know we got like 250 some days till next year. But like, come check us out. We hold the EH Stack tournament, which is 27 teams, one of the toughest like early season tournaments at the beginning of the year. And actually, it's not officially on the books yet, but we're working out a meet between us and Hale next year. So a battle of the dogs for wrestling next year. So we're working that out.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, picture.
You know, Daddy food, right? Yeah. I know that Daddy look, you gotta watch. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's.
You're in the middle.
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
I know you getting over that one. That's like a new right there.
The hard part, sometimes the point clubs change depending if it's a tournament or a duel.
Oh, exactly.
Sometimes it's, yeah, it depends.
Well, the month of March is Youth Art Month. Youth Art Month celebrates the importance of arts education and fostering creativity, critical thinking, and self-expression in young people. It highlights how the arts enrich academic achievement, builds confidence, and cultivates cultural awareness, preparing students for success in all areas of life. Below are pieces of art created by students throughout our district. If you go to the rec, you'll see displays, and there's some displays in here from Nathan Hale High School, as well as Horace Mann Elementary School that are here for showcase. On Friday, March 7th, Docky hosted a site visit from 8 educators from CESA 4 and the La Crosse Polytechnic High School. Mr. Gales coordinated nearly full day of activities for the group to observe and learn the philosophies behind our powerful and innovative project-based learning work. The itinerary included a school overview, building tour, data analysis presentation, staff collaboration, and best of all, a student Q&A panel. It was an energizing day for our visitors and school alike. An additional shout out from Docky. Congratulations to Docky Jr. Giovanni Brown for being the newest addition to the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee. The voice of Giovanni is new to WAWM this year, so he's bringing a fresh perspective on education as well as a firm grasp on the needs of his peers at Docky. So he will be a valuable addition to the group. Congratulations to Giovanni for joining the voice group. So last week, instructional rounds at Walker and Franklin Elementary School, WASB Day at the Capitol, as I stated earlier, leadership team monthly meeting, as well as safety walks and demonstration at Waukesha West High School. So I went over to Waukesha West along with Marla and Aaron Norris, and we were able to look at their security system, also their vape detectors, just kind of getting an idea of what are some things that we could do, not only short term, but long term, as we look at referendum funds and things of that nature, and improving our security system, but overall, how to be more on the preventive side versus, trying to respond to everything. So just really an eye-opening experience to see what they have versus what we could have at some point. I want to do a formal introduction to the public. Mr. Bill Smith. Bill is a highly experienced construction management professional with over 20 years specializing in commercial building and renovation, including schools, retail, and government projects. He will be our project manager for our referendum. So I wanted to formally bring on up Bill to say a couple of words while he walks up. He's born and raised in Wisconsin. He spent his 20s playing softball in the West Allis Men's League for Hankey's Bar. I don't know where that is, but I don't know if it's still open, but Hankey's Bar. 3 kids, a daughter at Marquette Law, a son who was a sophomore at Marquette, and a son who's still in high school. He has a very sports-oriented family, hiking and boating. His wife, Sarah, is a construction executive who was just awarded Wisconsin Commercial Real Estate Woman of the Year. Bill, thank you for joining Team WAWM. Do you want to have a few words to us?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. First day, excited to be here. Was able to get out and visit almost half a dozen schools today. So we're hitting the ground running, just getting a lay of the land, seeing the schools, seeing the needs, seeing, how we're going to approach this whole process. So a bunch of meetings tomorrow with our construction management partner, CG Schmidt. So that's good. Yeah, it's exciting to see the opportunity and the community being willing to invest in the schools in this way. And I'm happy to be here and be a part of that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Advisory member tonight is Tobias Jesse. He's a junior at West Allis Central. He's a captain of the football team. He has a 4.0 GPA. He's a member of the WAC leadership team. He's also one of the leaders in the student section at sports events. So you didn't have that on here. I just wanted to mention that for the public. Mr. Jesse, what's going on at Central?
Right. So you already stole some of the things on my Central sent 4 wrestlers to state and also got Coach of the Year, Coach Viss. And the Pat Connaughton Foundation granted Central a new basketball court in the field house, able to renovate it. Also, the district band concert, I believe was last week. I heard it went very well. And also, the staff at Central put on a underground spirit week where they didn't tell the students what the theme was for that day, and they made us all try to figure it out. I did not figure anything out. That's all I have.
Can you give me some examples of what one of the themes?
I believe one was like a spy theme.
Okay,
They all had like trench coats on, glasses.
okay.
I don't know.
Why don't you introduce your guests to us?
My guests. Well, I got my parents right there. Dave and Andrew, Jesse. I'm up here.
That includes Superintendent.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll move on to item 8, our public comments for this evening. There's no one currently signed up for public comments at this time. If there's anyone who is watching via Zoom, there should be a link in the chat to sign up for public comments. I'll wait 15 seconds in case someone wants to sign up for that. All right, seeing no additional signups for public comments, I will close public comments at this time. And we'll move on to item 9, our board reports for this evening, starting with 9.1, a review of the board calendar. So today is March 17th. We have a regular Board of Education meeting, and this is the final meeting here at this location. So if you come here on April 14th, which is when our next Board of Education meeting will be held, there will be no one here. You probably won't be able to get in, and that's because we're going to be located at the Activities and Fitness Center, which is at the former Lane facility. So please join us there for the next board meeting if you'd like to attend in person. If not, we will still have a Zoom option, so you can still enjoy the meeting that way if you like to do it in live. Otherwise, we always have recordings of the meetings as well after that point. So this is the last meeting, board members. We'll make sure to send out a separate email when we get closer, since we're almost a month away from that next meeting. But please don't come here. I know it's hard for some of us. We've been coming here for a long time. So then April 14th is our next regular Board of Education meeting. And then we also have several workshops at that meeting, our financial stability and efficiency proposed 25-26 budget, as well as the preliminary tax levy number 1. And then we have a leadership and learning workshop on the GVC and instruction. Then on April 28th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting and then athletic strategic plan workshop. Moving on to 9.2, our board committee reports, 9.2.1, financial stability and efficiency. Mr. Burns.
Yes, thank you. So the Financial Stability and Efficiency Committee met this evening here just before our meeting tonight. Talked about some of the upcoming work on updating our compensation model and getting that started. We've already sent out surveys to the staff to see where their interests lie and give some direction for the group to work as they're moving forward with updating our compensation model. We're looking at the balances or our committed fund balance, and where we're going to be looking at suggesting some of that be moved as we move forward in our budget, and then as things get a little further along. So just kind of getting a draft idea of where we might want to commit some dollars for our budget. Moving forward, and then we also talked about our referendum updates, which some of which you'll talk about this evening. And then last but not least, we're also keeping an eye on our state biennial budget, on how that's going to impact us moving forward, and just kind of watching what's going to be happening. But it is still too early to tell as far as where that will go. And then also just kind of looking at what our contracts and CPI adjustments will be made as we move forward. So a few things on the plate, but not anything that we're committing to quite yet.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Any questions from Mr. Burns regarding his report? Or any suggestions for future items for the agenda? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Burns. Move on to 9.2.2, Recreation Community Service. Mr. Becker.
Thank you. The Recreation and Community Services Committee met tonight. Spent the full hour discussing the upcoming workshop we're going to have on our strategic plan. A lot of moving pieces to it, a lot of questions still out there. So looking forward to a robust conversation during the workshop, and really have an idea of where we want to go. We also discussed a little bit based on some recent comments, some of the planning and making sure we have space for all of our activities. And that actually is one of the questions that came up during the strategic committee, or not the committee, but I can't recall exactly what the word was that Shelley had used. It was the group that came, a lot of the same people who came to initiate the project, ADs, coaches from the high school, middle school level over there. Who else do we have? I'm missing a group anyway. Apologies to those I didn't mention. There were a couple of parents there, I believe, right? But yeah, just really trying to troubleshoot everything. So hopefully it's going to catch as much as possible, but that's about all I got.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Becker. Any questions for Mr. Becker regarding his report? Or any items to consider at future agendas? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Becker, for your report. We'll move on to 9.3 board member reports of community events. Any community events board members attended that you'd like to report on? Ms. Kaiser?
I also attended the day at the Capitol, which was fantastic and a really great way to advocate on behalf of our kids. Saturday, I made it out to the boys basketball team, and I apologize if that's what happened to the score. But it was really great. Our kids were so excited, and it was such a great fan base. It was standing room only plus. It was crazy. It sold out, standing room only. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the boys do next year, and they play with a lot of heart, and it was really great to see so many people there cheering on our kids.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. Ms. Deal?
I also attended the WASB Day at the Capitol. I am kind of embarrassed to admit this, but I've been a Wisconsinite my whole life, and it was the first time I ever stepped foot into the Capitol. So it was a great experience. I am going to continue my advocacy and encourage all of you that care about public education to please call your legislators and let them know that we need our special ed funding increased. We currently get 30 cents on the dollar. It's supposed to be 33 cents on the dollar, but we don't get that. And also just providing more resources in terms of money for our schools. So it's very important that our legislators hear that you guys support education, that they start funding it the way that it needs to be, so that we don't have to go to referendum, right? And that our kids we're able to provide them what they deserve in terms of their education. So
Thank you very much, Ms. Deal. Anyone else like to report on events they attended? Ms. Carr?
I too went to the Capitol on Wednesday, and I just have to take a moment to thank Mr. Norris and Dr. Robinson for being so well prepared with our resolution and going there with such passion and speaking on our behalf, and the other board members as well. Mr. Lee always just knows exactly what to say at the right time. Ms. Kaiser, everybody just stepped up. We were so well prepared. We were so articulate. I was so pleased and so impressed, and I was so proud to be part of that day.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Other board members want to report on events they attended? Mr. Burns?
Yeah, sure. I did not make it to the WASB days, but I think that we were well represented, as you have all heard. I did make it to the basketball game on Saturday, which was, of course, as we've heard, a heartbreaker. But I am really proud of our students and how well they were competing and pushing themselves that day. So it was a tough loss, but it was, they put everything they had into it. So it was really good to see. And also, as part of Women's History Month, I'd like to give a shout out to our coaches for our cheerleading teams that took to the podium and advocated for some of their needs last week as far as resources and funding and scheduling. I think that we're really lucky to have coaches that are not only excellent at what they do with coaching our young women, but also showing them that advocacy is not always convenient, and it does sometimes uncomfortable, but it still needs to be done. So I want to applaud them for bringing that issue to our attention.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Beck. Mr. Beck?
Also, one comment on the WASB Day at Madison. I just think it's important to note that we were there with a lot of other districts too, and it wasn't districts just like ours. We were in one office with Elmbrook, which is a very well-to-do district, very well funded. and Pewaukee, also better funded than us. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's a bunch, and they were on lockstep. Had the exact same thoughts, the exact same ideas that they were advocating for. So this is not just us. It's not just districts in the city. It's all over the state, rural, suburban, urban. It's all of us. So I thought that was great to hear them. And I think I missed one last week too. I was at the National History Day down at UW Milwaukee, and saw some of our middle scores from FLW competing in the regional. There's a bunch of different categories. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It's a competition, but that was good to see kids engaged in the project-based learning and then having to defend it and talk about it in front of judges.
Yeah, absolutely. That was FLW when they did their student showcase last year. They had two teams from their National History Day that they had come here and present. So remember that. Some of you may remember that as well. Thank you, Mr. Becker. Any other board members want to report events they attended? Per usual, I'll wrap up. I'll just talk a little bit about the WASB Day at the Capitol. So I think the biggest thing, and I think that's something that we're learning more as elected officials, as school board members, was something that I think, especially when I joined the board initially, was kind of a backseat sort of thing. You know, the lobbying was done by some groups that we are members of, and they would take what we liked for feedback and put that forward as pieces for those lobbying efforts. And I think we recognize and realize as school board members now that that's something that we have to take a broader and more important role in because each school district is different. But I think the number one thing that was important from this event was that no matter the district, you know, WASB kind of put forth two things that they wanted everyone to advocate for. And I think that's the important piece because each district has their own needs, right? But there are some things that every district would benefit from. And so the two pieces that we were advocating for, the increase in special education reimbursement rate and spendable dollars. So per pupil funding increases as well as increasing the low revenue ceiling, as that affects about 76% of districts in the state of Wisconsin. To have those two things be kind of pounded into the heads of the legislatures that we're meeting with, I think is really important because when they're making those arguments and trying to make decisions about what things they're going to vote for or vote against, I think having that, it makes it more difficult for them to say, well, I didn't know, or I heard this from that person, this from that person. And so I just kind of picked what I thought was best. There should be no like question mark about what districts who are at that event we're looking for. And so we're hopeful that that advocacy will play out when this biennial budget is finally passed when it comes to educational funding. And I'm still learning, you know, I didn't know the difference between some certain and some sufficient funding. And it is a huge difference. And some sufficient is what we don't have right now for special education reimbursement, and is what we need. And so that is, there's always, as everyone says, you can always learn something new. And that's something that I definitely learned to do. So I want to echo, I think we were well prepared from our district. And I was asked the Pewaukee the lone Pewaukee representative from the board asked me, how did you get so many board members to come to this? And I said, well, you know, there was no edict, there was no requirement. They just thought this was important, and we each individually decided we were going to go. So I think that also stands showing well from our district, our representation at this type of event. So I do thank the board members for taking the time to attend. I know it's not a simple thing to do, but I do think it is worthwhile. And with that, I'll close out 9.3 and 9.4. Move on to item 10, our consent agenda for the evening. Starting with 10.1, approval of minutes for March 10th, a regular Board of Education meeting. 10.2, our employment summary. 10.3, supplemental contracts. And 10.4, our financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated out? If not, I would look for a motion.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We'll move on to item 11, our action items this evening. We have just one, 11.1, construction management services RFP, CG Smith contract. Mr. Norris.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for having me back. So kind of a similar process I want to employ tonight, consistent with previous RFPs is, you know, certainly we engage the board of upcoming contracts or certain things we're looking to go to bid for, and then the cycle is to return back to talk through the process and kind of how we got here to a recommendation for then questions and discussion, and then ultimately looking for an approval subject to those questions. So tonight I'm looking for kind of to walk you through how we came to the recommendation night for our construction management and owners rep discussions. We'll talk through kind of how that shook out and kind of the process we used. Ultimately, what were the deciding factors in making the recommendation tonight? So kind of the agenda, we'll talk through the construction management firm request for proposal, RFP, the process update and the recommendation. We'll also hit on the owner's rep and kind of the thinking behind that. I think it's important. And I think as an organization, I think prior to the meeting, Mr. Lee and I were talking with Mr. Smith, the new project manager, about this is kind of a new process for us. So trying to learn a lot as we go through this is important. And so I think, certainly that's a area I want to talk through tonight as well. And then we'll finish up with questions and next steps. And then Mr. Ryan Schmidt's here as well from CG Schmidt for questions as well. So this is the timeline we use. So we really launched the construction management firm RFP in mid-January. And so from mid-January all the way up into today, March 17th, we're about 2 months past that date. So kind of what goes into that? So we develop an RFP that gets vetted through legal, eventually gets put out to the public. That's in the newspaper, that's on the website. That is, we share to local vendors that are engaging with school districts typically, right? To see if there's interest. And then through that process, similar to food service, we facilitated optional tours for vendors that are looking to engage potentially to bid. So, they want to come see the sites. Here's a day to come do that full day. So that was facilitated by our finance manager, Jeff Borland, and Steve Eichman, our facilities manager. They visited an elementary, I believe an intermediate and a high school, and showed some marquee projects. So they went to West, they went to the field house to try to give some of the construction management firms a better idea of what we're looking at. Then post the tours, there's a time for questions to be asked. So they took all the questions, put them on a document, and shared them back with everyone who came to the tours. From there, there's a proposal submission deadline. From that point forward, there's vendor presentation, selected firms. We had 4. I'll get into that in a second. And then beyond that, we were looking at getting here by the end of February. That did not take place. Obviously, we're in March. I'll talk about that in a second. And then we employed a similar process for the owners reps, different days, different projects, but similar idea with a little bit different dates, but the same exact process. Tours, pre-proposal questions, responses to questions, a submission deadline, followed up by interviews, separate process, but similar and consistent. So what I want to talk about first is the construction management process. So as I outlined what we did, kind of the timeline, those events that took place, ultimately we ended up having 4 proposals. I think we had 5 or 6 different firms show up for the tours. Ultimately, 4 decided to provide bids. Myself, Jeff Borland, Steve Eichman, Rachel Cruz from Communications, and Shelley Strasser were on the interview team that facilitated all 4. We brought in all 4 of the firms. And through that vendor presentation, it was about an hour and a half presentation. About half of it, they were able to provide an overview of the bid. They got into the details about how they might what their work would look like, the systems they would employ. Ultimately, we asked them in their presentation to hit on, walk us through how you'd renovate the field house. That was one of the things. Like, just walk us through that from beginning to end, because how you might tackle one project speaks to how you might do all of them, right? And then we had some questions on our ends. Ultimately, we facilitated a finalist interview after that. We had 2 firms come in for a finalist interview, which is why this process got pushed back a little bit, why we're here tonight, not in late February. But what we landed on as a committee was 3 buckets. We thought that there were 3 areas that we felt like should be the deciding factor at the finalists. Because as I had shared, all 4 people or firms that bid were very well versed in K-12 experience across the state. Quality work, high remarks from all the different recommendations we had from area districts. So we felt like there were definitive areas, these 3 that were really stand out. So number 1, fees and warranty was the first one. What is it going to cost the district? What's it going to cost taxpayers? And what's the warranty look like? Number 2, the communication program. This became a very focal discussion of the internal team, because what we felt like we spent a lot of time on through the referendum campaign, this is directly connected to that, was trying to build a foundation of people's outlook of the school district and trust and transparency and when are things going to happen? Where can I get that information? That was kind of one of the main focal points that Carolyn's team took on to try to get the word out to people of what's happening. So we really focused on that. And the last one was kind of, what does it look like pre-construction? Essentially, what's it going to cost the organization to get you up to speed and how much time is that going to take to get up to speed, right? The final thing in that area is the expense consideration, not just with what's it going to cost the organization, but how solidified are you on what we have budgeted for these projects, right? So with that, with those three areas, our recommendation is to have CG Schmidt be the construction management firm. Not only in speaking to the fee structure, which was competitive and below all the area construction management firms, we also felt like having them be able to commit that there's no pre-construction dollar amount that would exceed $10,000, and there's not a lag in getting the work started was a big factor. Secondly, the communication, they have an entire communication department that has worked with these projects, obviously, in the past, and we felt like would be able to kind of pick up where the ball was set down from the referendum, so to say. So that was really important. And lastly, this is kind of speaking to the work that they've done with our organization previously, but allows them to have some efficiencies, right? And the ability to pick up right where we want to get started with the referendum work. So not a lot of money has to be spent from our organization to get them up to speed, which is a reality. It's just a fact, and that they can get started tomorrow, and they will, right? So I just wanted to hit on those three things. The second thing I want to talk through here is the owner's rep. So the similar process was used. Our organization, we felt like it was best to go to bid to split the project. So as you guys know, we split the owner's rep and construction management firm into two separate RFP packages. The construction management firm package was split out intentionally to have larger scope projects, the field house, the pool, major renovations, whereas owner's rep was going to be more ancillary projects, roofing work, parking lots, elevator repair, with the idea that we might be able to save some money by having less fees to be able to do that, less time on site. And so through that process, albeit the time that was spent to do that, to have that thorough of a process, having a full day committed to site reviews, having firms come in, interviews and things like that. What we were able to do though, is using these same three areas, essentially go, is there a way that through the fee structure, the communication plan, and pre-construction time expense consideration, is there a viable path to have one firm do it? And ultimately, CG Schmidt was able to guarantee that their fee structure would be less than an owner's rep would be. The communication program, certainly communicating with one vendor is better than communicating with two, right? Having two different people working through that. And the pre-construction timeline and the expense considerations, again, similar to the conversation I just had before, is why we'd be recommending CG Schmidt to take over the owner's rep portion of the projects as well. We feel like it'd just be most efficient. And if there's not financial savings to be going with a separate entity, it just doesn't make a ton of sense at this point. So I certainly think working through that process was important for our team to see what that looks like, because owner's reps are widely used in the area. But given the scope and what we're trying to do, I think it would be best for us working with Mr. Smith to stick with one firm on this. So with that, I guess I'd open up to questions, and then I can talk about next steps and then questions, I suppose. So, Mr. Becker?
When you talk about the fees, I was curious about this one, actually. I'm glad you spent the time on the owner's representative. How much in savings are we talking about by going this route?
Yeah, so not to get too deeply into that, the thing with the owner's rep is an owner's rep, the cheapest firm that we had was about $486,000 for facilitating that portion of the projects. That's about what it came in at. And with CG Schmidt, when I talked with Ryan, they said they could do it for about 1.25% of those projects. And that comes out to about $186,000. Okay. Now there will be some added costs there with people getting on site to visit. So when they're doing a parking lot project, someone's going to physically get to the site to make sure that the contractor's there on time. Those costs from 186 to 486 isn't going to eclipse that, essentially. So that's where I feel confident and comfortable that this is a better recommendation financially, but also from a communication structure, working with one team.
Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. I agree.
Not having to spend time with an owner's rep to go, well, is your timeline compatible with this timeline? So there's some costs there that are unknown too. So I just felt like that was the better choice.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
my question is probably the next step is, if it is streamlined, if we're not delaying getting projects up and running, what does that mean for our timeline to then get started?
Sure. So I can tell you, we met, I think, 2 weeks ago, tomorrow, we had a kickoff call. Carolyn and her team met with the communications department at CG Schmidt to get that rolling. And the goal, I think, pending approval tonight, and certainly the introduction of Mr. Ryan Schmidt here in a few minutes, is to really come back to the board in about a month roughly to talk about kind of what would be a recommended phasing of these projects, all encompassing. What are the considerations? What do those look like? Do those considerations fit with the board's priorities? Like that discussion to really, I think, get started as soon as possible. So that's, the nice thing is, pending support tonight, they don't have to spend, 60, 90 days getting into spaces in schools and vetting out that the budgets that were developed are consistent with what it actually will take. Now, no one can fully certainly guarantee everything in any environment, but the team that put those budgets together are the team that's going to do the work. So they're obviously their ability to stand by that's much more firm. So.
All right, what are those next steps?
So next steps, I may hit on a few of them actually in Mr. Burns' question. So the next steps are going to be, we have a second call tomorrow. I think that'll be an in-person meeting with the entire team. And then Carolyn and her team are meeting with the communications side of that directly after. The goal is to get back here as soon as possible with what those phases look like. I know, and Ryan will talk in a few minutes about kind of what that looks like, and from their side, engaging with an architect, getting them on board. I know, working on what the field house parameters look like. Each project will have its own level of involvement in terms of, community meetings, how the level of input is going to look like. But that's kind of the next step, is really getting back here to outline what does communication look like on a high level? What does it look like at a school level? What are the guarantees we can make to the community about when we're going to start a project at a school? How will you be informed? Or how does it look on the website? I mean, those are the kind of things we're working through. But then from a construction side, getting some cadence set up of, are there weekly meetings going on? That's kind of what we're working through right now. But I think the big thing is developing the phases and getting that to you guys and talking about how those considerations were made and how is that going to be communicated. I think that's the next big bucket, really. So. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Other questions?
any other questions, or are you introduced before, or do you want us to?
I think we could get approval if that works for you, and then we could, yeah.
So no other questions, I look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any last minute discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
So similar to the financial services RFP we did, where we had PMA was the firm that was selected. I thought it'd be great for you guys to get a name with a face and kind of see who's leading the charge from CG Schmidt. So with that, I'd introduce Ryan to kind of do a brief introduction and take any questions you guys have.
Well, thanks, Aaron. As Aaron said, my name is Ryan Schmidt. I'm managing director of our K-12 business unit. And CG Schmidt was started in 1920 by my great-great-grandfather. And the mission at CG Schmidt is to create exceptional facilities that improve the lives of others. So obviously this referendum, I think, is in direct alignment with what our mission is as a family company. And over that 105-year history, we've really grown into the school market. We've worked in over half of the districts in southeastern Wisconsin, and education makes up about 40% of our total business. So it's probably our largest market segment that we work in. And we have a lot of experience working in West Dallas too. We've done a number of recent projects at the district office at 9333. Also working on multiple phases with the rec department for the fitness and activity center, where you guys will be meeting next month. So really excited about this project. As Aaron and Bill said, we'll be meeting tomorrow. We're going to get right into talking about design, prioritizing projects, planning and phasing. And then that communications meeting will be directly following our call as well. So our team has been engaged with Carolyn and Rachel to get the ball rolling and really hit the ground running with the planning of this project to try and streamline things as fastly as we can here.
Other than that, just looking forward to another successful project, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board? The only thing I will say is we need to do a good job. It's really important that we do a really good job. So it will be paramount that we work well with CG Schmidt to make sure that is happening, communicating every step of the way with our community, because it's been a long time since we've had this sort of support from our community. And I know we as a board want to ensure that we're doing our very level best to deliver on what we promised and hopefully over deliver on what we promised as far as the projects that we're doing, and really appreciate CG Smith's partnership in that.
Well, yeah, this project, I can guarantee you will be a top priority for us, and we appreciate the partnership we've had in the past. And promise that we'll deliver a successful project and communicate all the wins with the community and stakeholders.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was our only action item this evening. And so before we move into executive session, I would look for a motion in a second to convene an executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85 parent 1 parent G to confer with legal counsel for governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy related to a DPI boundary appeal.
So moved.
Second. In a second, roll call, please. Yep.
I know. All right, guys, have a good night, all right? Next meeting.
Mr. Burns,
Yes.
Mr. Becker,
Yes.
Ms. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Ms. Deal,
Yes.
Ms. Kerr,
Yes.
Mr. Sikich is excused, Ms. Lee,
Yes.
President Lee.
Yes. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess to get into executive session.